Welcome back, everybody. Anybody that's left, at least. Glad to have you back. Welcome to the finale of Lore Souls. That's right. After all this time, we are finally reaching the end of Lore Souls. It is finally time for us to go towards the last area of the game. First, we'll check for one quick thing.
Forgive me, I am impure. I wish.
Yep, since I'm not on Framp's path, she's not gonna give me the other dialogue. Oh well. Too bad, too bad. Anyway, let's go straight to the abyss.
What is it? I am your guardian. Go on, state your wish. They failed me.
Oh, he's got nothing new to say regardless of me having everything. Well.
Very well. Be still.
Warp me,
Trust
Koth.
thy flesh to me. What is it? I go. They failed me. Every last one.
Well now, once more we have reached the entrance to the kiln of the first flame. And as I pointed out before, we've got all this kind of ornate architecture around. Various goblets on the outside, some with fire, some without. And it's all built into these roots of this arch tree. Because we're going to a very ancient place. And so the Lord Vessel, as we've been informed throughout the time, is powered by the souls of all 3 out of 4 of the Great Lords. You'll notice that it takes a portion of each Lord's soul except from that of the Furtive Pygmy. The Furtive Pygmy doesn't have any say in any of this. The Lord Vessel is powered by Gwyn's soul, the Witch of Izalith's soul, and Nito's soul. It's designed in such a way that, without the consent of those 3, the kiln cannot be accessed by any normal means. Part of the reason why the Furtive Pygmy doesn't get any say in this is that, very specifically, the Dark Soul is the soul that the others are so very afraid of. If the Lord Soul required a portion of the Dark Soul in order to enter, who's to say that those with the Dark Soul wouldn't deny them? Who's to say they wouldn't want the world to change in a way that benefits them as opposed to the others, considering those with the Dark Soul, humans, are in a way towards the bottom of the rung of the life on the planet, the life in existence. Because of that, it only takes the 3 souls. And you'll notice that we gained the Witch's soul directly from the source. We gained Nito's soul directly from the source. And both have been weakened over the years. The Witch's soul has been weakened over portions of the soul being spent on creating demons as the bed of chaos. Nito's soul has been weakened over the years over portions of his soul being spent creating throngs of undead legions at his beck and command. And it takes 2 different portions of Gwyn's soul in order to equal the small fragment he would have had to put into the Lord vessel. And while it's a small fragment, it's still no tiny feat. It's a big, momentous decision in order to open the path to the kiln.
Magnificent. You have followed my teachings faithfully. You are the true Lord of Men, the Dark Lord. Now go forth and rid us of that enfeebled Gwyn. I, Karth, shall await you here.
Wasn't Seath's soul also required, though? Seath's soul, the soul that you get from Seath, is a portion of Gwyn's soul that Gwyn gave to Seath after Seath betrayed the dragons. Dragons don't intrinsically have a soul. So Seath himself doesn't actually have a soul. He only had a portion of Gwyn's soul that was awarded to him. Just a small fragment. So, it's time to enter the final area of the game. And the first thing we're greeted with as we try to enter into the final area of the game is this a bright, brilliant light all around us in this small tunnel towards this dark opening. As we look forward, we see the sight of ghostly knights walking from the left to the right, all of them left to right, none right to left, meaning it looks like they're all journeying towards the same place. It's hard to tell exactly what the reasoning behind this might be. Perhaps the kiln is kept within its own alternate dimension, a pocket dimension, and this is a land in between it. Perhaps what we're seeing might be the knights fading from one dimension to another. Maybe they're fading in and out of existence itself. Maybe this is some sort of purgatory for all of the Black Knights that died when they joined Gwyn, and they're on some never-ending journey that's going to go on forever, for the eternity of their souls. It's hard to tell. In fact, really impossible to tell. But the thing is, that's not really what matters. What matters is when you see this, when you enter this area for the first time, what are the feelings? What are the emotions that it drags out of you? When you see this for the first time, what's the raw feeling and the sensations that you have? Do you feel wonder at the sight of this new fantastic area? Do you feel mystery and intrigue as you try to perceive what's happening in front of your eyes? Do you feel a sense of sadness for these knights doomed to possibly walk forever through this plane of existence? Do you feel some sort of danger that the knights are going to turn on you and attack you as you come here? What matters here is everything that you feel, the emotions, the encompassment of everything that's led up towards this final area of the game, and how you feel the first time you walk forward into this area. Once you finally get past the first opening, this almost ghostly alternate dimension, this kind of veil, you finally reach the final area of the game, which, while it's the end for us, it's the beginning of everything. Kiln of the First Flame. The origin of of all of existence, the origin of the story. Before the First Flame, the world was gray. Existence was gray lands, arch trees, and stone dragons. You could hardly even call existence existence. The flame brought life, it brought death, it brought light, dark. The flame basically brought existence into reality from nothing. This is the origin area of existence, of life itself. That was an early parry. That was too far away. So the Black Knights. It's finally time to talk in depth about the Black Knights. We've been seeing them throughout the entire duration of the game, the encompassment of them. We found them in various areas. We found them in Undead Burg, and we found them in the Darkroot Garden. We found them in Lost Izalith. We found them in the Tomb of the Giants. We found them in the Catacombs. We found them all over the world. Perhaps the only place we didn't really find them were the Duke's Archives in Anor Londo, but that's because they likely would have been killed. The Black Knights are all just suits of armor. They are no longer living beings. They disappear when you destroy them because of this. They're merely souls attached to a vessel. They're no longer men. They're no longer whatever gods. They're not what they were when they came in here with Gwyn. When Gwyn lit the first flame, it scorched them out of existence, and in a way bound their souls to their own armor and their own duty. Empty husks powered by their own souls. That's what the Black Knights are. By the way, this is the last area in the game to get the Black Knight weaponry. It's also the only area in the game where the Black Knights will respawn. Presumably because the Black Knights, the ones that followed Gwyn into the kiln, are all here. All originate from. So, looking at kind of the architecture of the area, if we look at, say, the main building housing the first flame, it looks very, well, very opulent in one way, but it looks like it would have been a place lived in at some time. You can see windows across the ways through there, which presumably indicates that perhaps something would have lived here at some time. It's kind of hard to justify that considering it's the kiln of the first flame and was protected by the Lord Souls of the three of the four great lords. There is some similar architecture in, let's say, Ariamis, but Ariamis is a painted world. Perhaps the architecture in Ariamis is based off of this in the first place. Whether it was built by the gods to house the flame and keep it safe, or perhaps they had built it as some sort of reverence towards the flame. It's hard to say, but this is a large, grand building in which the flame resides. And you'll notice the discoloration, these scorch marks on all of the architecture within here, or all of these pillars, all of these columns, all of these scorch marks and the discoloration from the heat, all pointing inwards towards where the first flame is, suggesting not that the flame happened with an explosion when Gwyn lit it, but more of an implosion, since it looks like the heat was sucked inwards and all of the flame goes that way. Yeah, the drop rates on the Black Knights inside the kiln are actually rather good for their weapons and such. And here is the last actual item pickup of the game, and it's a gimme. And it's where we're finally supposed to get the Black Knight set. Little bit late in the game. Well, tiny bit late, you know, just a tiny bit. Anyway, I haven't read any of the description of this, I don't believe. So let's go ahead and do it. No, I could have just gone into... Oh, well. Alright, so. Black Knight Helm. Helm of the Black Knights who haunt Lordran. The knights followed Lord Gwyn when he departed to link the fire, but they were burned to ashes in the newly kindled flame, wandering the world as disembodied spirits ever after. So, that's our confirmation that the Black Knights are not living beings anymore. They are merely armored husks with souls fused to them to power them. And here we have the culmination of all of my efforts towards this particular side quest. We have Solaire Vostora. With his summon sign down all the way into the kiln of the first flame. Solaire has spent the entire game. Solaire is the final NPC of interest for me to talk about, and the only one I haven't talked about so far in recent time. Sorry I had to break up the videos. Solaire has spent the entire game with his own motivations that he never truly shares with us. He spends his time searching for his own son. He never expands upon that. And in fact, he may not even know what searching for his own son means. It seems to be some intangible status in life that he's searching for. Some weird fulfillment that he can't quite find. He seems to, even throughout the journey, he seems to come to hate himself for not being able to find this son that he's searching for. Look, he's even got sad eyes. Look at those sad eyes. Downward cast eyes. Poor Solaire. As the game goes on, his depression deepens, and while he overcomes some of the greatest obstacles the world has to offer, he defeats... He makes his way up into Anor Londo, defeats godlike enemies. He makes his way through Lost Izalith, facing demons that even Gwyn and his men couldn't handle. He makes his way all the way down into the Tomb of the Giants, facing the Lord of Death, Nito. He makes his way throughout everything that we've fought through, searching for whatever his own son, overcoming these obstacles, giving everything he has to help others with a jolly smile and some happy words, even despite not finding what he searches for. Even his armor is, in a way, kind of telling of his life. His armor said that he had to draw the symbols of the sun onto his armor himself, and that they're not blessed or anything like that. Much like that, he's in a way symbolically trying to create his own son, which in his life seems to be what his purpose is. He's trying to find his own son, but it's not really something he can find. It's something he has to create for himself. Whether it be like some sort of feeling he has to find within himself that he can't find, or maybe a search for the goodness of humanity itself, goodness within humanity. It's something that he finds difficult to find, if not impossible. Which, I mean, if you meet the majority of the characters throughout the game, there's a lot of NPCs that goodness in humanity really isn't something that you find. Solaire may not have found Laurentius or Siegmeyer in his world. Maybe all he found was, say, along the lines of the undead merchants, or the crestfallen knight. Despite all this, despite trying to find the goodness in life and everything like that, his fear of others thinking him as a fool kind of slumps him into a further depression. He fails to find his son. And despite all of this, he still comes to the player with love and open arms. Solaire spends the entire game as an ally towards you. Never once does he ask you for help on his part, Never once does he dismiss you or any of the problems you might have. Anytime that you find him, while he may have his own shortcomings, he wishes you good and offers up his services to you. Even here, he's a good person still at heart, trying to spread goodness to the world. Even here, at the very end of his possible journey, at the kiln of the first flame, about to end the game in his world, he's about to become the chosen undead of his world. He still leaves his summon sign here because he doesn't know whether we've made it or not, and Solaire wishes to offer his assistance to us one last time, if possible. Miyazaki described Solaire's good end as the one where he puts the sunlight maggot on. Because in that ending, for Solaire's questline, Solaire does find his own sun in a way. He has a brief moment of overwhelming joy. And although it's a false sun, although it's some form of false happiness, the fact that Solaire gets to experience that at all is a good ending in Miyazaki's eyes. This is a point where I personally differ on. Oh, he got both of us. Personally, and I think this might even be one of the signs of Miyazaki not being the greatest of writers out there. Well, he's good at times. He does slip into these moments that's kind of not the smartest. In this ending, Solaire has fought his way to this point in the world. He's at the kiln. He's ready to become, in a way, become the sun for the entire world. He's ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. He's ready to do the ultimate kind gesture that he can possibly do for his entire world, to ensure that life will continue for generations to come, to truly show the kindness that humanity has to offer. If Solaire's searching for his own sun is along the lines of searching for kindness in humanity, this is both a figurative and literal sense of him becoming and finding his own sun. Solaire, throughout the entire game, even at the end, still offers to help someone before going off to help the rest of his world. Because that's the kind of person Solaire is. Not because Solaire sees some sort of duty he needs to be fulfilled. Not because Solaire is some righteous warrior who's grown up his entire life being told that it's his destiny to do this. But because Solaire is a nice guy, a kind and strong person who wants to see the goodness in the world and spread goodness through the world. Even at the end of his own journey, he takes a break and sees if anyone else needs help. And that's why Solaire is easily one of the best and most memorable characters in video gaming in general, but especially in Dark Souls 1. So we're about to face Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, as he's called in the US. In the Japanese version, he is called Maki no Gwyn, which means the King of Kindling, or the King of Firewood, Gwyn. I kind of like Lord of Cinder more. I think it fits a little bit. So, a lot of people are sad that this fight is an easy final boss because of this mechanic, the ability to parry. But truth of the matter is, if you don't parry Gwyn, he is an incredibly strong badass, and easily one of the most powerful enemies that you can face through the game. Even hundreds of years after offering his soul to be burnt up as kindling in the flame, the remnants of what's left of him, the remnants of what's left of his personality, his life, his soul, his mind, his everything, is still enough to create this incredibly badass and powerful person. As you can tell, Gwyn's face has been hollowed out. But that's not because Gwyn is an undead, but because Gwyn originally, as with all life in this world, is a pygmy. And what we're seeing is not Gwyn succumbing to the undead curse, not Gwyn losing his mind to the undead curse, but Gwyn's body, his vessel, losing the soul within it, going hollow and reverting to the primal form of a pygmy. So we got Gwyn's soul. Let's take a look at it. Soul of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. The largest soul that we've found at all, and the one that looks the most like a flame. Because, as I've stated before, all of the souls are a piece of the first flame. The dark soul, the life soul, the light soul, even the death soul are all part of the first flame, have some sort of component of each other soul within it in order to form the life that we know of now. Soul of the Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight, and Cinder, who linked the first flame. Lord Gwyn bequeathed most of his power to the gods, and burned as cinder for the first flame. But even so, Lord Gwyn's soul is a powerful thing indeed. And this is worth more souls than anything else in the game, if I recall correctly. I believe it is worth 20,000. Making it quite true that it is a powerful soul indeed. He shared portions of his soul with each god in order to bring them to life. He shared portions of his soul with the four kings and with Seath, as a sign of loyalty and trust towards them. He had been partitioning off parts of his soul over hundreds of years, a millennium even. He even cast in part of his own soul to once again open the kiln of the first flame, and still, his soul lasted for nearly 1,000 years as kindling in the first flame. His soul had such an attachment to his body that his body still had so much power left in it from the remnants of his soul, even 1,000 years later. Gwyn at his prime, at his height, was likely such a powerful being he could easily be considered a god by anyone else. So now we're at the end of the game, and we're at a decision, a momentous decision, the thing that the entire gameplay has been culminating towards. It's the only real question that we're asked at the end throughout the entire game. Whether you went with Koth, whether you went with Frampt, whether you chose neither, you are asked at the end of the game, do you link the fire, or do you walk away and let the fire fade? It's not really a concrete choice. It's a choice of what the choice is to you. Do you consider this a choice of light versus dark? Do you consider a choice of good versus evil? Is it a choice between acceptance and denial? It's really up to the player to decide how the end of this game is interpreted. Ultimately, though, whether you choose to let the dark in now, or whether you choose to kindle the flame, at the end it really won't matter, in a way. The dark eventually does claim everything. So you recall I spent Manus' soul in order to get a spell called Pursuers. Sorcery of Manus, Father of the Abyss. Grant a fleeting will to the dark of humanity and volley the result. The will feels envy, perhaps love, and despite the inevitable trite and tragic ending, the will sees no alternative, is driven madly towards its target. This description is incredibly relevant to the entirety of the game. This description by itself describes the culmination of all of the journeys we've seen throughout our journey here through Dark Souls. Those who live are claimed by the dark. They literally are a will in the dark of humanity, are humans. In fact, all creatures kind of have the dark of humanity in them. Like I said before, each soul has a portion of itself in a living being. It's just which portion is the dominant one that determines the race. All of the a vast majority of the NPCs throughout this game, whether they be bosses, whether they be merchants, whether they just be people that we talk to, their journeys go on and are ended. They're destroyed in the name of love, envy, greed, some form of inevitably trite emotion that brings about a tragic end to them. Every character in this game kind of follows this truth in a way. Whether it's the witches, the humans, the gods, even Gwyn himself, they all burn out and face the darkness in the end, by their own hands, driven by their emotions. Their love for each other, in the case of most of the witches. Their greed for more power, in the case of people like, say, Laurentius, and those journeying to try and make their way through Sen's fortress to Anor Londo. Their envy of others' lives, in the case of, say, Siegfried. Their fear of the unknown and the desire to protect those they love from it, in the case of people, even Lord Gwyn, in that case. These all lead to the end of the most powerful beings the world has ever seen, and the smallest beings the world has ever seen. They all walk driven by their emotions towards this same kind of ending. They have no alternative. They're driven madly towards their target. They live for this drive, for this desire that they have to fulfill whatever this is, whatever this task is, and they are driven madly towards it. And the Pursuers is a good culmination of that. So now we're left at the end of the game asking ourselves, what's our choice? Do we relink the flame? Do we rekindle the flame? Relight the lie of this world as it is. Let the world continue down the path it's been continuing down. Allow people to live their lives letting trivial, trite choices be the deciding factors towards what will ultimately be their end. Allow people to suffer and continue to destroy themselves through these trivialities. Or do we acknowledge the natural course of the world? Do we embrace the end of the fire? Do we leave this all here to end and see what the world has in store by moving forward? The choice really is one that is yours to make. No answer is correct. Whether you link the flame because you think that preserving the current life that people have, allowing them to continue on, to live their beautiful, horrible, disfigured lives, whether they meet fortune in the end, whether they're dealt a bad hand in life, but to struggle through the pain of existence and find their love, to pursue their greed, and see what happiness or sorrow comes before them. Whether that's your choice, or whether it's to leave it all behind, to see, to really put that past you, let the world continue on its natural progression, whether that be the end of the world as we know it, perhaps the new life form that's supposed to take over the world is the undead. Perhaps a throng of undead is supposed to come through at the end of the world. Perhaps humans come forward and they become the new natural rulers of the world, and they're right. Whatever your choice is, it's yours to make. There's no wrong decision. As for me, I think the only real answer is to let it end. The only way things change is to really embrace the change. You know? The stories of Solaire, Siegmeyer, Laurentius, Logan, Goff, Sif, even Oscar from the beginning of the game, all of these people all of these bosses we've met, the great beings we fought, the people that we found and shared laughs with and had sorrow for, felt tragic endings with. Their lives lose a lot of meaning by relinking this flame. They lose significance. Their stories fade to time and are forgotten. Their mistakes are replayed and remade by others as the years go by, centuries pass. These people are forgotten to the ages because of it. Their lives lost meaning because at the end, nothing changed through their sacrifice, through what they taught us throughout their own lives, or what they might have helped us with. By linking this flame, I feel like it does a disservice to all of the characters we've met up to this point, the sacrifices they've made and what they've taught us. Their lives lose meaning if their impact of the world doesn't really change any. And the best way to drive home the meaning of a story is to bring about its ending. My choice is to embrace the natural course of life, leave the fire behind. It's the nature of this world. It's the nature of the fire. No matter how spectacularly kindled, no fire burns forever.
My lord, bless thy safe return. Let Carth and Fraft serve your highness. We are here to serve your highness. Let true dark be cast upon the world. Our Lord hath returned.
And so, with my decision made, Dark Souls has ended. In my path, there is no Dark Souls 2, no Dark Souls 3. The world enters its Age of Dark, and whatever comes, comes. The Age of Fire ends, fire fades, whatever happens, happens. Dark Souls was originally meant to be a single game, no sequels or anything. And I think this ending really incorporates that in a great way. It puts resolution towards the story. It allows the stories of the NPCs to really culminate into your character and head towards the end of the game. And at the end, I've always liked this ending the most. Not because it's cool to be a badass Dark Lord or anything, but because I like the idea that by making this decision, we've made the NPCs more significant, more relevant towards the story. In Dark Souls, while it has its cool combat and interesting bosses and stuff, at the end of the day, Dark Souls is really about the interaction between the people in the world, and very heavily based on how you see the NPCs, how you interact with them, and how you decide to go through the world because of it. With that, we're finally done Dark Souls 1. All of its lore, all of the beauty, all of the ugliness that it has to show. Whether showing us the amazingness that is the storyline of characters such as Siegmeyer or Solaire, or showing us the ugliness that is some of the less finished areas of Izalith or the Tomb of the Giants, or even some areas you might not like, some areas you might like. Dark Souls 1 is definitely always going to be one of my favorite games. Not because of only the gameplay, not just because of the design and the artistic look of everything, but in a big way because of the deepness of the characters and how nice the lore is to go through. I'm glad you all joined me on this lore through. I hope you all enjoyed the lore playthrough, because I had a great time. I always have an incredibly good time just enjoying the game and the characters and discussing the lore of it. Yes, this will be on YouTube. Definitely gonna go to YouTube. If you've missed any of the lore playthrough parts up to this point, everything I've done up before today is already on YouTube and available in a playlist. You can hit !YouTube for a link to the YouTube, and you can watch there at your leisure. There's like, 20 to 30 hours of content up there in just this playthrough. Because Dark Souls has a lot of stuff to offer. Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
Ah, there she goes.
The dark sign brands the undead.
And so with that, our incredibly ornate Black Knight armor, we've ended the game. And while it goes to New Game Plus and the cycle continues, in my heart, we brought resolution to the world. Fire faded. So, thanks so much for watching, guys. I truly hope you enjoyed this, and whether I maybe taught you some new lore, or even just got you thinking about some of the significance of other stuff, I hope this brought maybe a new light to Dark Souls to those of you that maybe only just played through the game. Didn't really take a break to look at the architecture or read the item descriptions or even talk to all of the NPCs as much as you could. Hopefully this, brings a whole new, in a way, a whole new appreciation to everything available in Dark Souls 1. And helps to explain why I have such a deep love for the story of this game and the playing of it. And if you didn't get all that on your first playthrough, and maybe even got different opinions from me, it's fine. It's all in how you play through it, how you look at it, and how you experience it. It's different for everyone, and for me, it's a great place to see some very well done characterizations and some deep lore. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this lore playthrough. I will see you guys on the next bit of content we do. Later, everybody.